Their economies are deeply interdependent. Their politics are tightly intertwined. Their citizens move across borders every day with ease that contradicts the rhetoric of their leaders. For two nations that sometimes pretend not to need each other, the truth is simpler and more human. They quarrel because they are close. They blame each other because they can. And they remain bound, whether they admit it or not, by history, geography, and necessity. This has been the exact case for Tanzania and Kenya for close to 50 years now. In the late 1960s and 1970s, Jomo African Community in 1977. Nyerere shut border with Kenya in 1977 as a culmination of irreconcilable differences that led to the collapse of the East African Community, EAC. These differences were both ideological and economic. Ideologically, Nyerere's Tanzania pursued a socialist, ujamaa, policy, while Kenya embraced a capitalist path. Nyerere viewed Kenya's capitalist influences as corrupting to his nation's ideals. On the economic disputes, Tanzania accused Kenya of a series of actions that sabotaged shared East African institutions, such as unilaterally seizing assets and effectively grounding the East African Airways Corporation. Nyerere stated the closure was in retaliation for Kenya's actions, and it also served to seal off Tanzania from the flow of Kenyan goods and ideas. Early in 1977, before the border closure, Tanzania impounded several Kenyan-registered aircraft and hundreds of transport vehicles and buses, leading to diplomatic tension and the stranding of tourists. In retaliation, Kenya ordered Tanzanians living and working in Kenya to leave the country. The border remained closed, and diplomatic ties were severed until relations were restored in 1983. When Nyerere reclosed the borders, he never anticipated that a time would come when he would desperately need Mwa's support. Then there came a crisis in late 1978, war that began after Ugandan forces, under Idi Amin, invaded and annexed Tanzania's Kagera salient in October 1978. President Nyerere mobilized his forces to repel the invasion and then decided to overthrow the brutal Amin regime, which he had never recognized. Nyerere desperately sought Kenya's cooperation, specifically urging it to cut off crucial oil supplies and transport facilities to landlocked Uganda. The relationship was so poor that Nyerere had to send a message to Mwa through the U.S. Department of State to discuss the situation, as the two leaders were not on speaking terms. Kenya did not heed to Tanzania's request at the start of the war, and this brought a significant animosity between the two East African leaders at the time. Eventually, Mwa accepted President Julius of Tanzania's request to support him. Kenya and Tanzania underwent a significant reconciliation period in the early 1980s, leading to the re-establishment of diplomatic relations in 1983 after a 6-year break. 1983. Diplomatic ties were officially resumed, and the border was reopened. The period between 1990s to 2013 saw bilateral relations improved substantially, leading to the signing of the Treaty for the Re-establishment of the East African Community in Arusha, Tanzania, in November 1999. The revived EAC officially came into force in July 2000. The Kenya-Tanzania relationship during 1990 to 2013 was competitive but stable, marked by periodic tensions, especially over trade, tourism, and regional leadership, but always managed through diplomacy. Since 2013, Kenya-Tanzania relations have moved from cautious rivalry, through a period of serious strain, to a renewed and pragmatic partnership driven by economic and regional realities. 2013 to 2015 was cool but cautious. Tanzania was uneasy with Kenya's leadership in fast-tracking regional projects, SGR, oil pipelines, Northern Corridor. Cooperation continued within the East African Community, EAC, but trust was limited. Trade and tourism disputes persisted quietly. From 2015 to 2021 there were strained relations under Magufuli. This was the most difficult period since the 1970s. Key issues were trade restrictions, tourism, and aviation tensions. Tanzania imposed bans and non-tariff barriers on Kenyan goods, milk, maize, cigarettes, and also put Restrictions on Kenyan airlines and tour operators. President Magufuli favored economic nationalism and strict sovereignty. Kenya viewed Tanzania as hostile to EAC free movement ideals. Despite tensions, borders remained open. No military or severe diplomatic rupture occurred. In November 2017, Magufuli ordered the burning of 6,400 one-day-old chicks from Kenya. This raised uproar and threatened the diplomatic ties between Kenya and Tanzania. 5 years later, President Samia had to apologize for the wrongs of President Magufuli. The coming of Samia Suluhu regime as from 2021 saw Tanzania determined to restore regional diplomacy and economic cooperation. Kenya and Tanzania resolved most non-tariff barriers and trade restrictions. Kenya and Tanzania have experienced a hate-love relationship in Samia and Ruto tenure, although in several occasions, Samia has accused Kenyans of fueling animosity in her country, more especially the post-election violence experienced in Tanzania in October 2025.